Welcome to the Metamorphosis podcast, where we explore the possibilities and processes of personal and community transformation based on the ancient wisdom of Kemet, one of many classical African civilizations, as a foundation. I am Dr. Catherine Lynn Adams, an associate professor of African and African American Studies at Claflin University, where I teach courses on oral and literary traditions of the African world with an emphasis on interviewing and archiving the stories of our elders. I am serving as a scribe for this project. Joining me is Baba Derrick Jackson. Baba Derrick is the priest and thought leader of Christ Universal Temple, a spiritual community in South Carolina. In this episode, we will hear about the expanding of the program and its final chapter. Stay tuned.
We didn't select the sites select us. Communities who heard about our program invite us to first maybe run a program, then teach others how to run a program once we leave. And then we were fortunate, very, very, very fortunate to join in the Children's Defense Fund under Marian Wright Edelman. Marian Wright Edelman and the Children's Defense Fund created a committee of ministers, lay people, and teachers. And it was called the BCC, Black Community Crusade for Children. It's 3 C's, the BCCC. And the Black Community Crusade for Children reached out. The person who was their first director, who was from Bennettsville, South Carolina, which Marian Edelman was from, right? She was Marian Wright in there. And the first director came from her hometown, who I had a personal relationship with, right? Named Marian David. And the David family in that Bennettsville area were educators. Man, she had history of her mother, father, not father, but mother, uncles, aunts, grandmother, you know what I'm saying? They had a history in that county of being educators. Everybody in that Bennettsville area knew the David family and knew the Wright family very well. The Wright family came under preachers, and the David family came under educators. So when Marian Wright Edelman had hired Marian David called a nationwide meeting of rites-of-passage programs around the country. And by that time, she identified 25 different programs that were going on around the country. And we convened at the Alex Haley Farm in Tennessee. And that's where I met Anthony Browder. I knew about his work before then, but I met him in person at that meeting because he was one of the invitees. That's when I met the Hawk program that was actually being run by a man named Lawford Goddard. But Dr. Wade Noble's name was under the Hawk program. But you know how it is, you have the persons whose name is more popularly known associated with the Hawk program. But Dr. Goddard is actually the guy you want to talk to about the Hawk program, right? And I would meet a professor at, oh wow, sorry, I can't remember his name, but I remember he's a professor at Morehouse. And he was in the Morehouse Medical School. So people from around the country, and we came together, putting together a program for the Children Defense Fund. We were the architects in putting together an idea and an ideal of a program that needed to be run for Black children. And we age graded, right? Right up through high school. And within that program, we had different levels, right? For different teaching. Within that program, it became Freedom School. And then it became the Ella Baker Trainer in Freedom School. Now, once we laid out the architectural, let's say an architectural drawing, now you have another group of people who come in and take that architectural drawing that becomes Freedom School. Because they curriculum right, they do all of the mechanical stuff that needs to be done in building the program. But they had a blueprint from which to work from. And so you got the different levels. Now, let me back up. We started with 25. Marian David said that's too many people for her to work with. So she reduced the 25 to 8. Okay. And it was the 8 of us who became the architects to lay the blueprint for how it should look and how do you run it from almost kindergarten to high school. But then Marian brought in another group of people to actually put the hands-on look on what it's going to look like. And that's when it became Freedom School. And then it became the people who run Freedom School will be called the Ella Baker Trainers. Now, the 8 of us who she selected out of the 25, we had to train the first Ella Baker group of 20 young men and women. Now, after we trained that 20, we dropped out, okay? And that 20 became the ones that instructed everybody else. So if you ever been around Freedom School, they have in the summertime this Ella Baker Trainers module that they do for 2 weeks. Right? And I remember, I'll never forget this, Dr. Adams. The 8 of us stopped going to the farm in 96, 97. I was to return to the farm for a program they asked me to be a part of in 2003, 2004. And I walked into the auditorium, and you have the first day when all of the trainers gather from around the country, because by that time it had spread it out around the country. And I looked at that elevator training session that they had in the auditorium in Knoxville, Tennessee, at the University of Tennessee, we started at Knoxville College, which is a HBCU institution. But it had outgrown the ability for Knoxville College to handle the training session, right? So they had to move it to the University of Tennessee because they had the space. And when I walked in that auditorium and saw it had grown from the 20 we started with to now they were training at that time 9,000 elevator trainers. I'll be honest with you, I'm not afraid to say I cried. Because to see something that was just an idea take off in the way that it did, because a lot of times when people who create these things don't get to see what happens, they create it and life moves on or they transition, and oftentimes you don't always get to be able to see what happened. And you see, and when they announced they were going to train 9,000 trainers, all I could do was tears rolling down my eyes. And the young lady said, "Well, excuse me, but why are you?" And I said to her at the time, "I can't explain it, but just know this is a good thing." I said, I just can't explain it to you because I'm overwhelmed by what happened, how it was, how it had grown. And I say that to say that because of my association with the other 7 people, we invited them to Columbia at different times. They invited us to go around the country. So that's how the word started getting out about Project Sankofa. And I took the long route to tell you how it got out. But that's how other communities would invite us to come.
So what does it look like as it is ending? And did you know it was ending? Describe what that looked like.
As we got older and busier, because I'm now a priest, which I wasn't at the time that all this started, and I'm trying to build a temple from the ground up, right? Not Dr. Gallman is now going from private practice into institutional practice when he joins the VA. Nana Joe, he gets a new director of the Department of Juvenile Justice who moves him from St. Luke's Center and said that she wanted him down at the courthouse, where she wanted him to be the top administrator at the courthouse to handle social workers in that area. So we were being pulled away from the places that gave us the freedom to do certain things. And that's when we realized, okay, we need to do more of training. But what surprised us, and in some ways felt a lot of pain over, was people, Black communities not wanting to do the work. What I mean by that, they wanted us to come in and run the program rather than having adults in the neighborhoods, in the community, run the program. And we were trying to say, there's no way we can run a program. We can train people to run, but we surely, based on the way our lives were going, could not do it anymore. My daughter was getting older. Bernie and Joe's children were getting older and required a little bit more of our attention. Our lives were changing in ways that just could not fit us doing a program. And that's because the program required what we call 60 sessions. No, the program required 40 sessions. The trainers required 60 sessions because you have to do a little bit more extensive work depending on the knowledge of the people you're working with. And so we always wanted to give ourselves some room to say we can go from somebody who knows nothing to him or her being able to run a program. And we didn't, even though our program was geared toward boys, later on, after about 2 years, around 95, 96, we started including our wives in our program. And they ran a female version of Project Sankofa, rites-of-passage program. And like once we gave them the outline of what we were going to do, they took it into a whole different direction. And how they did it with young girls. And they were doing things with young girls that I know we as men wouldn't have thought about.
Give me an example.
Like making their own makeup, their own care products from scratch. Men wouldn't have thought about doing something like that. Wouldn't have happened. Redirecting their sense of what beauty is. What it means from their point of view to be a woman and a Black woman given this anti-African reality. We can talk about some things, but there's no way. There are nuances that I saw them do and just not going to think about it in that term. Because we were more brick and mortar concrete, and they were much more imaginative and more inner thinking, using a lot more intuition and insight in what they were doing than we did.
When does the Project Sankofa come to an end? What year is that?
I don't know. Well, what the year it came to an end for us to run the program, probably around 28, 27, 28. From then on, we wanted to train trainers only. And we were, by that time, bringing our program and things we talked about to the National Association of Black Social Work. We had been part of their national conference since '98. And so every year at their national conference, we had workshops on rites-of-passage, program, philosophy. And that's how we came up with based on the book that we had written by '98, the theory, philosophy, and overview.